Wonderful. Well, I hope everyone is enjoying their lunch, and please continue to do so. But I would love to start our program. So once again, we'll be using Whova for the Q&A, so please get those phones out and get your questions in. The login details are on the QR code in the back of your program. So it is now my pleasure to welcome to the podium Ryan Bruce, the BC Manager of Government Relations of CLAC, to introduce our lunch and keynote speaker. So thank you, Ryan.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is absolutely fabulous to be up here in PG and back in person for what has been an incredible event, incredible forum this year, and of course many others before. I'd first like to acknowledge that we're gathered for lunch today on the traditional territory of the Clay-Claytonais, and I'm grateful for Chief Logan's warm welcome yesterday. And as we move into the final stretch of the forum, I think it's appropriate at this time, and it's already been said a few times, but I think Sarah Weber and her team at C3 deserve a big round of applause for the amazing forum that they put on. So CLAC we're a progressive multi-sector union representing men and women who are working on many of the projects that have been discussed at this forum over the years. Site C, LNG Canada, Coastal GasLink, and Trans Mountain, just to name a few. We've been attending since 2014, and over the years we've discussed a wide range of topics, all working towards these projects to get into fruition through a collaborative and sustainable fashion. Topics like environmental impacts, regulatory regimes, impact benefit agreements, mining, forestry, oil and gas, Indigenous opportunities. In the early days, as was pointed out earlier, that contracts and joint ventures and now stakeholder positions, all incredibly important discussions, and I'm always amazed at the wisdom and the ideas and the passion of those that are presenting, and many of you who have here and participated. But I want to just draw your attention for a moment and think about the men and the women who are building these projects and the opportunities that the projects create for them and their families. They wake up each morning, they go to work. These jobs might be direct or indirect as a result of the projects that are underway. It's a huge benefit, and it's because of our collective commitment to the natural resource-based projects that are breathing life into communities and families right across this country. Giving families the opportunity to live, play, and work in what is one of the best places in the world to live. And so on behalf of our members and all the men and women who are building these projects, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the early visionaries of this forum, Pat Bell, Shirley Bond, and Mike Morris. I want to thank them for their vision for pulling this forum together to be able to talk about the abundance of BC's natural resource sectors and the opportunities it will create for the men and women who are building these projects. And I want to thank all of you. I want to say thank you to you and encourage you to keep dreaming, keep innovating, keep collaborating, and keep working through the challenges, because without perseverance, the projects of today would not have come to fruition, and the same will be said for the projects of tomorrow. All right, that's enough for that. I appreciate you letting me say that, but let's talk about trains. I'm personally fascinated by trains. As a kid, I can remember around the Christmas tree, my first train set, and it actually had CN on the engine. You get those little sets, and the fact you can load things in trains and move them around here, and you see miles of cars all moving goods around this country, absolutely fascinating. And so I'm really excited about our presentation today. It's my pleasure today to welcome Tracy Robinson back to the Natural Resource Forum. Since she last spoke at this forum in 2020, she was appointed President and Chief Executive Officer of CN. CN has an extensive network in BC, serving two major West Coast ports in Prince Rupert and Vancouver. And Tracy knows BC very well. Prior to joining CN, Ms. Robinson was the Executive Vice President of TC Energy and President of Canadian Natural Gas Pipelines and President of Coastal GasLink, where she helped advance one of the largest projects in the history of northern BC, including the advancement of agreements with 20 First Nations along the Coastal GasLink corridor. I look forward to hearing about Tracy's vision for where she wants to take CN and what it means for the opportunities in the North and the province of British Columbia. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Tracy Robinson, to the stage.
Getting 300 million tons of freight to market and powering the economic growth of a nation, that takes a lot. It takes fortitude and focus, a strong footprint, and a commitment to reducing it. It takes partnerships, communities, collaboration. It takes a vision and care for one another. It takes all of us together into the future.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Is it done? Good afternoon, and thank you, Ryan. Have I got a job for you? It's these great railroad jobs. You get to drive locomotives. You get to load things on. In fact, there are two locomotive simulators right outside this room. I think they're right outside the room, aren't they? And if you want to take a little practice run, see if you'd be any good at it, then, we welcome. We got Denis and Steve here, right? There you go. They're right here at the front. They'll give you a guided tour on how to do that. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon. As we get going here, like Ryan, I want to acknowledge that we are gathered today on the traditional, the ancestral, and the unceded lands of the Tene. It is an honor to be here with you today, and such a pleasure to be back in Prince George. Look at this room. I'm glad I made my hotel arrangements early. I'm not sure where all of you are sleeping, but glad to be here. And it's good to see so many of you. I've had some comments from some of you about how easy I've been seeing the last couple of days with my high-vis jacket. It's not that this is the latest in fashion in Montreal. It's more just I was leaving my office really quickly, and I took my go bag, but I forgot my work jacket, and so I've spent the week down across the United States at customer functions in my high-vis jacket. So there you go. This is always such a special event, and it impresses me, the group that you bring together here. Congratulations. The unique group of the communities and the Indigenous communities, and it's such a great forum to think about the opportunities and not only what's done, but what's possible here in Northern British Columbia, and we are proud to be part of it. As Ryan said, I was here a couple of years ago in a room that I could see the back of. I can't see the back of this one. And when I was talking to you at that point about another very important piece of infrastructure, Ryan mentioned it, Coastal GasLink, in support of the LNG Canada facility in Kitimat. And it is wonderful. I've been watching it from Montreal. It's wonderful to see that pipeline and that LNG facility continue to progress so well. And soon, very soon I hope, the first of the WCSB natural gas, much of it from northern BC here, will make its way through that pipeline and through that facility and start flowing into markets in Asia. And isn't it fantastic that British Columbia and Canada can play an important role in the efforts of Asia to reduce emissions? It's fantastic. And it's really important as well that we can make such a clear demonstration with this project that it's possible to build big infrastructure here in British Columbia and in Canada when you do it the right way. So my congratulations to that team. I'm proud to have been associated with that effort. Now, railroading. I'm here to talk to you today about another very important piece of long linear infrastructure, but this one's above the ground. A bit less than a year ago, I moved to Montreal to take on this job with CN. This rail system across our country and across our continent, it's built up over the last more than 100 years. And in BC, our infrastructure here not only connects the communities in this region to industries and local markets across Canada and across North America, but also to markets around the world. And like the pipelines, We move energy, but we also move forest products and coal and grain and potash and automobiles and parts and chemicals and containers. You get the idea. On the railroad, we like to say that if you wear it, if you use it, if you eat it, if you drive it, chances are we moved it. And you could easily add on to that, it probably went through British Columbia. Just doesn't kind of rhyme as well. But at CN, you know, we take seriously, you know, our purpose, and that is to power the growth of the Canadian, the North American economy in its entirety, but also for its industries, you know, individually. And we do that by providing thousands of customers across almost every industry with transportation to and from local markets and markets around the world. And this area is really special to us. This area in northern BC, it's a really important part of our network, and it continues to be a really big part of not only our country's growth story, but ours as well at CN. As Ryan said, our rail lines serve at the Port of Prince Rupert and the Port of Vancouver, across BC, and they connect that all the way across the country to the Port of Halifax and down to the Gulf Coast of the United States. Over more than 30,000 kilometers of track and hundreds of facilities that connect all those markets. But despite the breadth of that network, more than 50% of the business that our railway does is here in Western Canada. And it's driven by that expanding trade between our country and Asia, actually our continent and Asia, through Rupert and Vancouver. It's driven by the forestry sector. It's really important in this community. At CN, we carry more forest products on our railroad than any other railroad in North America. And most of that comes from this area in Prince George and the area across northern BC. This railroad's driven by coal and other mine products that are taken to markets around the world. It's driven by grain and potash that move through BC on their way to global markets. It's driven by all kinds of energy, refined fuels, crude oils, jet fuel, petroleum products, and what was last year a record amount of propane exported to the world through Prince Rupert. It's just to name a few. So BC is gateway to the world, but also the source of resources that are needed around the world. It's an important part of our network, and here as we sit here in Prince George, we have 2,500 employees in BC. 1,000 or so of them are across the northern part of this province, and 600 of them live right here in this community. And we're looking for more, by the way. Ryan, we're looking for more, by the way. They crew trains, they repair track, they service and repair locomotives and rail cars, they inspect facilities, they monitor the environment, they keep our railroad running 24/7 in all kinds of weather and conditions. Their homes are here, they work here, their children go to school here, they are your neighbors, and I hope they're your friends. And I had a chance to meet a bunch of them this morning. I was on train 199, it was an intermodal train headed towards Prince Rupert for a little bit this morning. Then I toured the locomotive repair facility and the mechanical repair facility, spent some time at Prince George Yard. By the way, they liked my jacket. It is high fashion in the rail yard. But I'm very pleased to say that here in Prince George, nearly 10% of our team is Indigenous. Across BC, it's about 8% of our workforce, and we're very privileged to have that kind of access in partnership with our Indigenous communities here in BC. We work hard to support the communities we live in and we work in because there are communities. And so we also have many sponsorships, and here in Prince George, as I understand it, we sponsor the CN Center. It's not far from here. My team thought I should say, go Cougars, but as a woman of a certain age, I'm not sure that. So we are going to need to have a talk about the name of that team. Anyway, but the thing I want you most to take away from today is our commitment to be with you here to support your industry and your growth. And our purpose, as I said, is to support the economic growth of this region and of the country. And to do that for the country, we need to be here in northern BC. Now we know that this means, for those who ship by rail, we know this means that we first need to do our day-to-day job very well each day. And then we need to be beside you as your partner as you build for the future. So over the last 11 months, we've put a significant focus into improving our customer service, our reliability, and the speed of our operations. And we've made considerable progress on this year. Today, we are running very well on this railroad. We're faster, and we're more consistent. And we're working much more closely with our supply chain partners. I'm not sure what the protocol, what you're supposed to do when that happens, but anyway, with our supply chain partners, whether they're the ports, the other railroads, whether they're the trucks, whether our customer facilities. Supply chains work only when every part of a supply chain works. So step one, we want to run well. Step two, we want to work very closely with our other supply chain partners to ensure that the whole of the supply chain runs well. And most importantly, we're safer. I was telling Nathan Cullen that earlier this month, we celebrated a very important event. We passed our 2 years without a fatality at CN. And yeah, it's a pretty big deal. There is nothing more important than sending our people home every day. And as important as the 2 years is, what's more important is today. And tomorrow it will be more important. We are almost at that same milestone, nearly 2 years without a serious injury. And these things are very difficult in the railroad industry. We're very proud of it, but it's a kind of baseline business. We've also been investing since 2017, so the last 5 years or so. We've put nearly $2 billion into BC to enable the growth, to improve our capacity, and to continue to advance our commitment to safety. Last year, we put about $400 million into our lines between here in Vancouver and here in Prince Rupert, new sidings and extended sidings so that we can move your product more effectively. So your business continues to grow, and our business here has continued to grow, and we're here to support you. Now first, let's consider our line to Vancouver and to the port there. Now, the Port of Vancouver is a world-class facility. You've all seen it. It's large, it's significant, it's got this big, beautiful city that's wrapped all around it, and it's an important conduit. In 2021, the Port of Vancouver alone represented more than $24 billion in economic output. Pretty big. Moving over $275 billion with the cargo. So it's a critically important gateway to this province and this country. There is an intense focus in that area right now on addressing the bottlenecks that are there. Trying to lift productivity and eking out that next bit of capacity through the entirety of that system. We are certainly at that table for that process, and we are investing there as well and in capacity. But the real opportunity for material growth is here in the north. And it's through the Port of Prince Rupert, about 700 kilometers down the track from here. The Port of Prince Rupert has emerged over the last decades as a powerhouse to be reckoned with. And the story's really just begun. Now, from what I'm told, it was an ambitious dream at the start of the 19th century that died with the sinking of the Titanic. Many of you probably know that. I did not. It was a true story. To becoming a wartime port and then a regional port focused mostly on fishing, only to be revived back to a true North American gateway. The Port of Prince Rupert has a long and rich history to be very proud of, but it's got an even more exciting future. And I'm sure the Port of Prince Rupert folks are here today. I saw them last night. They admired my jacket. This amazing Northern Gateway is becoming the most important alternative conduit between Canada and Asia. It's a beautiful, small community wrapped around it, and its ability to expand is tremendous. Rupert has $60 billion of trade that moved through it in 2021 and is generating $1.4 billion of economic activity in northern BC. These are big numbers. Now, the port not only boasts the shortest sailing time from Asia, it's 3 days quicker than LA, and the deepest natural harbor in North America, but it connects to our network, which means it can get products anywhere across Canada and across the United States. And it facilitates our access to the Asian markets here from British Columbia and from Canada. And it's growing. I mentioned the Canadian propane is right now heating homes and powering businesses across Asia. And in fact, CN delivered an incredible year with our partner at AltaGas on propane. The wood pellet shipments have gone from 500,000 metric tons in 2014 to 1.5 million last year. Intermodal containers are on the rise. They reached over 1.2 million TEUs, which are containers, in 12 years. And we're in discussions across this province in the West on important projects in rail, in intermodal, and in liquid bulk that are at various stages of development that we hope will materialize over the next time frame, whether it's 2, 5, 10, or 15 years. They're going to drive the next level of significant growth in BC and the rest of the country. So BC continues to be the gateway. Northern BC continues to be our gateway and the focus of much of our growth. And for this to happen, we know that the Port of Prince Rupert has to expand. Many of the industries have to expand. But we at CN will need to invest as well, and we're ready to do that. We will invest to expand our capacity, and for us, that means longer sidings and more sidings. It means reinforcing the bridges and hardening our infrastructure. It means more investment in cars and in locomotives and in technology to ensure that we continue to advance the safety of our operations and our efficiency. It's going to be more people, more jobs in communities along our line, permanent jobs, Ryan, with good pay, strong benefits, and it'll mean more support for the communities along our route and that we live in. But for this to work, it needs to work for all of us, and that's why we like to gather in a community like this today. We're excited at CN to play a much bigger role in making all this come together for you. So just to conclude, despite living now all the way across the country in Montreal, I'm really pleased that I and much of my CN team will be spending a lot of time here in northern BC with you, working with you and our customers and our communities, not only to continue to improve our service levels, to work with you around imagining the future, what we think that this business, this communities, this economic prosperity might look like as we look forward. We want to share in your aspirations, and if we work together and we get the future supply chain right, we believe that one of the biggest opportunities for communities in northern BC, the province, the local business, the customers across our country, and the Canadian economy is the corridor that runs right through Prince George. Now, I know that things can be difficult at times in the north sometime with the economic swings, but I'll say again, we're hiring. We're looking for the right people to join our team, one that are excited about playing an important role in building industries and building the economy in these communities, and about doing it safely in a manner that supports our environmental and our climate initiatives with the opportunity to live in this beautiful place, beautiful part of the world. And this amazing future is just beginning now. So we're proud of being part of your community, and we're proud to be part of your success. So thank you again for the chance to spend some time with you. I look forward to seeing you again, and go Cougars, huh? There you go.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Now I'd like to invite you to sit in the comfortable chairs, and I'll invite Susan Yurkovich up to moderate some questions. So thank you very much, ladies. And just a reminder to enter those questions in Whova. We've got a few in there, and you might want to get in some more.
Thanks, Sarah. Is this on? There we go. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
I'm great.
Fantastic.
It's really nice to see you here. I know you've been crisscrossing the country and in the U.S., meeting with customers and stakeholders. I think you've been in the job maybe less than a year. And we're really fortunate you've been in BC a lot of that time, and we appreciate that. The first question I would ask is, I know you spent some time in the rail sector, and then you went away and you came back. And so a couple things, what brought you back? And maybe just, have there been any big surprises in this first 10 months or whatever that you've been back?
Well, you know, thanks for the question, Susan. It's fantastic to be back. It was difficult to leave Coastal GasLink and the tremendous work that that group is doing. I've left it obviously in very good hands. The opportunity to come back into the railway and focus on a broad group of kind of economy and commodities and industries that underpins the full economy was just, and it's going back to my roots. I spent a lot of years, most of my career in the railroad industry. You know, it's an honor to be able to cross the country and the continent and to be able to be part of the success of so many different industries. And it's important that we do that well. And as I come back to CN and into the industry, I would say there's a couple of things that, as you say, have surprised. One is I was gone 8 years. One is the extent to which technology has advanced. You know, even being out in the yard today to see the predictive technology so that you know, we don't wait for incidents to happen or things to break now. We can see it very early on and sense it, you know, microscopic things that you can't see by the eye, naked eye. And so our safety performance is coming up, and that's exactly what we need to be doing. And the technology that's under development is equally amazing. So that's been a fantastic surprise.
I think about it, I mean, you are heading up an iconic company in our country. Super proud of the sisterhood, as I think many in the room are. If you think about a CEO has a tenure, you've just started your tenure, if you were gonna, when you step out of this role, whenever that might be, if you were to look back, what would you want to be, you know, what's your vision for your tenure while you're here at CN? And then maybe just, what do you think the key points in terms of executing on that are?
Thank you. Well, listen, you know, I spent a lot of time in the railroad when the last chapter of railroading was a lot about getting more and more and more efficient for the purposes of the railroad. And I think a lot of great work has been done on that. But really the purpose of a railroad is to drive economic growth for a country, a region, or a continent. And that's our job. And in order to do that, we need to be close to our customers so that we do that together. Right? In order to provide the capacity that our customers need, we need to work with them in imagining around where trade flows are going to go and where we need to have capacity in place where. I want CN to be a company that does that really well, that our industries, our customers, our communities can rely on to be there in the right way. And to do that, we need the right team. And I'm really impressed with the team at CN as I've come in. They live in these communities, as I said, and they want to be part of the success of the communities. And that's what's going to make this work and make this successful. I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to do.
I'm going to go to the HUVA system there. You talked a little bit about the percentage of Indigenous employees at CN, and I think looking around this room, they're true participants in the resource sector in all parts of the sector. But the question there is how do you plan to continue to increase that or engage more and maybe even have them participate in ownership stake? I don't know, is that even on the table?
You know, I learned a lot when I spent my time in British Columbia to see all of the ingenuity that's taking place here around how we can imagine a different future in partnership with our Indigenous partners and communities. And, you know, we want to think that way on the railway as well. So as good as 10% or 8% is, you know, we need people. We need the next generation of people. I like that number because it says that we are a place that Indigenous communities and workforce can come to work. But that number, it should go way up, and we want it to. And I think it is, when it comes to engaging with communities, we run right through all of these communities. We want to be good partners. We think that there's opportunities to create economic benefit for all, right? And for this to be good, whether it's good for industries, it's good for us, it's good for the economy, it needs to be good for Indigenous communities as well. And we're going to get a little more creative around how we can make that happen.
Thanks. I don't mean to rush through the questions, but if I don't want to get in trouble from Sarah. I've got a clock here, and so I'm going as fast as I can. I'm going to go back to here. There's a question that's, what strategies do you have in place? Everybody's looking at ways of reducing their carbon footprint in absolutely every sector. Maybe can you talk a little bit about what CN is doing in that regard?
We've made some big commitments on that front, but let me just say the concept of railroads is very supportive of reduction of emissions. You know, when you think about the amount of freight that we can carry on with 2 locomotives versus the number of trucks that are on the road. But about 85% of our emissions comes from locomotives. The first step is to become more fuel efficient. And we're the most fuel efficient railroad in North America by about 15%. The next step is we blend fuels, so we're blending biofuels in with the diesel. The next step is the next propulsion, kind of propulsion. We are doing work on battery-powered, we're doing work on hybrids, and we're doing work on eventually the concept of using hydrogen as locomotive fuel. It's a big concept, it'll be a little ways out there, but we're doing the right work to get there.
Thanks. You checked one of the other questions off, so that was good.
Okay, great.
You're doing really well here, so we'll keep going. You mentioned in your remarks about going, being in the rail sector and then moving to pipelines and then coming back to the rail, and talked about it being, it is linear infrastructure, and linear infrastructure has its challenges. There are some similarities, but there's lots of differences. But maybe can you just talk a little bit about those two?
They're great partners, right? We need them both. The pipelines are great. They're long-term infrastructure. They move large commodities of energy of one commodity, and they're very economic. Railroads are a little bit different. We move everything, as I said, and we have a single line, and so we've got the ability to have an impact on the economy across all industries. And if you open up a map of the railroads of North America right now, without any building, you can get from where you are to wherever you need to be right now. And so that's important to support economic growth. And I think the final thing is that after working to expand and build new pipelines, back in the rails, what it takes to expand here is different. So we have a single track network. To expand, you need to allow the capacity for more trains to meet, right? Which means you need more sidings and maybe longer sidings for longer trains. And so that is largely done within the kind of framework of our current path. And so it's a much quicker thing to do, so we can be really responsive to the needs of our industries and customers and their desires to grow.
I'm going to do two questions, Sarah, but I'll be really quick, 2 minutes. I think we have to talk about the supply chain. I mean, it's first of all, it's so great to be back in the room. It's just so delightful to see so many people. We've missed being in person. There are a lot of things we learned out of the pandemic, and one of them is about the importance of the supply chain and how critical it is to grow for our economy, but for economies across the globe. We've talked about working in partnership. You talked a lot about how, the CN has a partnership approach. We all have to be part of this, and we're seeing that more and more. What can we in this room do to help with that?
Listen, after all the shocks of the pandemic and the unrest in Europe, supply chains, all of us have been challenged in pretty much the most fundamental way possible. And what we've learned is we all have to be much more nimble and resilient. And there's lots of ways to do that. But the biggest part of it is any supply chain only works if all parts of the supply chain work. And so no longer can we focus only on the effectiveness and the performance of our piece, including the railway. It includes a customer facility, the rail, to the next rail, to a port, to a trucking organization, to a warehouse. And we need to get much more tightly integrated across the full supply chain. And I think there's ways to do that. There's data that we can share. There's different planning that we can do that's much more integrated. That's going to be critically important. There's a group of us doing this in Vancouver right now to get that next piece of capacity, of looking at right from when a grain car is loaded in the country to the time it's on a vessel and leaving out, what is the very integrated plan on that can accommodate early information on, if it's going to rain in Vancouver and we can't load the vessel, or if there's a vessel management program there, which vessel needs to be advanced next. This needs to be done in a very coordinated way. We've got a lot of work to do on that, but I think that's the right direction.
Okay, and just the last question. If you wanted to leave one thought with the people in the room from your presentation today, what would that be?
It's the potential for this part of British Columbia, right? It's such a beautiful part of the world, and it has so much of the economic potential of the country. And I think that there's a way to do this, and to do it in a way that respects the environment, respects all of our aspirations around climate, but drives the future of the communities here, and in truth across Canada. We need to continue to grow this economy, and that potential lies here.
Thanks so much. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Susan.
Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for being here, for returning to the forum. I know it's so appreciated, especially to be leading such a large company as CN and come to this forum. So very meaningful. Susan, thank you. Amazing job as moderating. What a powerful sisterhood we do have up here. I'm actually going to ask you to stop to take some photos, and our photographer will come here. And so once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you can join me in thanking CLAC for the sponsorship of the luncheon today. And just as our next note, we will be moving into our final panel, which is the hydrogen panel. And hang on one sec. So we are going to do it differently again as we did yesterday. So feel free to just relax. We are going to have the Civic Center staff clear the dishes, but we're going to stay in these round tables, and we will get going on the next panel. And so at this time, I'll also ask our AV team to, we're going to have an encore presentation of our 20th anniversary celebration video. So meanwhile, just sit back and relax and enjoy your dessert if you didn't finish it. Thank you.
I was elected in 2001 as part of the BC Liberal government. One of the key challenges in BC at the time was, and continues to be, land use conflicts. My team and I came up with the concept of getting everyone from all of the key resource industries in the same room at the same time to talk. We were glad to have our original event organizer, Joanne Uransky, with us in the early days. Without Joanne, we wouldn't have been able to do this.
Well, Pat told me about the plan to launch this new event, and he asked if my team would help. So of course we said absolutely. So in the early days, the forum was 2.5 days of keynote speeches and panel sessions that focused on the best of Northern BC innovation and resource business.
From day one, Rio Tinto Alcan and its government relations director, Richard Prokopenko, were title sponsors of the forum, and without their generous contributions, we wouldn't have been able to continue.
So the idea of an annual forum to share and communicate, bring all kind of people together from diverse interests of the community, government, and industry made perfect sense, not only to me, but all my colleagues. So Rio Tinto decided to be supportive of the first forum in 2003, way back, and has been one of the many sponsors, along with so many others, ever since.
But as the forum kept growing, the expectations grew with it. My successor, Mike Morris, eventually turned things over to Dan and C3.
We were confident that focusing on great speakers, ensuring that delegates had great accommodation, a stellar venue, great food, and networking opportunities would create a not-to-be-missed annual event. It is so very rewarding to hear delegates, speakers, and sponsors say if they could only attend one conference per year, it would be the BC Natural Resources Forum in Prince George.
When I used to work on the LNG Canada project, every January I knew where I needed to be, at the BC Natural Resources Forum. There really is no better place for people to come together to talk about the most critical issues as it relates to natural resources in our province. Very often we take for granted the natural resources that we can develop here in this province. Very often we've taken for granted how do all people participate in that development. But here today at this forum is where we can talk about that. So congratulations on 20 years, and I certainly expect that the forum will be around for at least another 20 more.
I started coming to the BC Natural Resources Forum in Prince George after I was first elected in 2005 in opposition. And I learned a lot about BC's natural resources from this forum, and most importantly met the people who are involved in the natural resource sector across the spectrum in northern British Columbia. The venue is great, it's comfortable, it's intimate, and you can meet and talk to people in a way that you can never do in your office down in the lower mainland. I was so impressed with the forum as a regular attendee that I impressed upon incoming Premier Horgan that he ought to come up and speak to the forum when he was elected Premier. And he did come up and very much enjoyed the experience as well.
And what I think of most, first and foremost, is the relationship building between local government leaders, between First Nations leaders, between BC cabinet ministers and senior bureaucrats, and most importantly, between industry leaders as well. And those relationships are really important because as we discuss honestly the risks and benefits of resource extraction, existing and proposed development in BC, you have to have those relationships to have those honest discussions.
Since its inception, the BC Natural Resources Forum has been an important place for our members to connect and share ideas our province's future as a responsible supplier of choice, of critical minerals, and other low-carbon natural resources depends on all of us working together. And the BC Natural Resources Forum provides an excellent platform for this to happen.
Our nation is honored each year to host the premier Natural Resources Forum in our unceded territory in our home community of Prince George. More so now, more than ever, we need to have a conversation about how to support sustainable resource management. And the BCNRF ensures that First Nations will be a key part of that conversation.
The BCNRF had become one of the major annual events in our community. Over 1,000 attendees, every hotel in the city booked solid for 3 to 4 days, the restaurants were crowded, and good luck trying to get a cab.
We are thrilled to be back in Prince George on the lands of the Lheidli First Nation for the BC Natural Resources Forum. There has always been something about the energy in the Prince George Conference and Civic Centre when we meet in January for the BCNRF. The BC resource sector is critical to BC's economy, and we are pleased to have an event where everyone from government, industry, First Nations, and other stakeholders attend and participate in shaping the sector and the future of BC.
For the natural resource sectors to become truly innovative and sustainable, they need commitment and support from government, First Nations, communities, companies, investors, and regulators. The place to start and sustain those conversations is at the BCNRF.
Our community knows that our future is linked to the responsible resource development in our territory. We are helping our youth, who are the future leaders of our community, revisit the land and learn more about how our ancestors sustained themselves for thousands of years. Part of this journey is to learn about how sustainable resource development can help make us stronger economically, socially, and environmentally.
The BCNRF is now recognized as Western Canada's largest multi-sector resources conference, and it's an event that's a catalyst for positive change and reconciliation. It's really great to be part of the 20th anniversary edition of BCNRF.
We know the event is unique and it's recognized across our Canadian offices as a must-attend. We also encourage our partners and colleagues and stakeholders to attend each January if they can.
The theme of this year's forum is how BC is contributing to an innovative, responsible, and respectful global natural resource sector. The forum provides a positive, nonpartisan arena to discuss and learn firsthand the latest news, trends, and opportunities within the key resource sectors in BC and across Canada. Well, C3 has been so proud to play a part in growing the BC Natural Resources Forum with all of you. So cheers to 20 more years for this premier BC event.